On today's edition of the Lynch List, we're going to have a little bit of fun today. I'm going to go over my top 10 most annoying MMA fan narratives, bad takes. You know what I'm talking about. Every time you'll hear a fan say something or a group of fans say, certain thing, you just have to shake your head at it. So we're going to go through our top 10 here today, and I'll have some honorable mentions at the end. And let's start at number 10 so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about here. We're going to start with Mackenzie Dern, UFC strawweight fighter. What am I talking about as far as Mackenzie Dern? Her accent. People have been obsessed with her accent for years. And if you don't know, Mackenzie Dern, born in the US and had a much more strong American accent when she was younger. And now she has a bit of an accent now. And people are like, is she faking the accent? Has she forgot how to speak English? No, what it is, people, and I have to explain this all the time, and I still see comments on every Mackenzie Dern interview, people thinking that she's faking some accent. What the case is that she's speaking Portuguese more than she's speaking English. I know at the gym, she's probably speaking a bit of English, but she has teammates who speak Portuguese. Her daughter, she speaks Portuguese to her. Her parents speak Portuguese. When you speak a language more than another language, you're going to develop an accent. It's just the way it is. You want an example? Go look at my interview I did with Corey McKenna on this channel. She's almost lost her English accent because she's lived in the US for so long. I know plenty of people that if you go and live somewhere for a long period of time, if they have an accent, you will start to pick it up. And I know people say she lives in the US, but again, if you're speaking one language more than the other, you're going to develop a bit of an accent here. So the people who obsess over this, I don't get it. I don't understand why Mackenzie would fake an accent. Let's say you conspiracy theorists are right. Why would she do that? What does she have to gain from this? What would make her different than everyone else? I just think it's super annoying, and we still hear people talk about it. Mackenzie's been in the UFC for years. I'm tired of hearing about it. So that's number 10. Let's get to number 9 on the list here. This is one that I've been talking about recently, and I'm going to do a separate video on this as well, and that is fake MMA news, okay? And what I mean by that is you'll see Instagram accounts, you'll see YouTube accounts talk about fights as if they're done or they're set, or fight news as if it's official, and it's not. It's coming from a made-up source, not a made-up source, but someone that's not credible. We see this time and time again. We had an example of this past week at the time of recording this on July 21st. This whole situation with Paulo Costa and Ikram. Paulo Costa's out of the fight. Everyone just assumed that Paulo Costa pulled out of the fight for undisclosed reasons. He has in the past, obviously with Robert Whittaker and Jared Cannonier, but people were ready to say, let's cut Paulo Costa. On top of that, we had another rumor out there, which proved not to be true, that Ikram was going to be fighting Roman Dolidze. This is what I'm talking about here, right? We have a poster here that someone made, the Dolidze Askarov happening on July 23rd. We know that's fake news, obviously. That's a fight that ended up getting rebooked. So Ikram's going to be fighting on UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi against Nasruddin Imavov. Someone actually went and got a hold of Dolidze. He's like, I'm not fighting at all. So, but people ran with it. This keeps happening. These accounts that have no accountability, they're just, up and coming accounts. They're trying to build a name for themselves. They'll just grab whatever news there is and they take it as gospel. And then I have to hear about it being like, hey, James, what did you think about the Ikram and Roman Dolidze fight? Do you think Paulo Costa should be cut? This is literally things that have been talked about. The UFC needs to get rid of Paulo Costa. Why? They moved him to UFC 294 to fight Khamzat Chimaev. It had nothing to do with him. So this is what I mean. And we've had this before, even before this week. We had Khamzat Chimaev, Colby Covington officially in the works for UFC 285. This type of stuff. They're Instagram accounts. They're not credible accounts. I've said this time and time again. If you want to take news as official, MMA Junkie, MMA Fighting, ESPN MMA, Brett Okamoto, Ariel Helwani, Mike Bond, Big Marcel, Cole Shelton, you name it. Those are the people you need to be trusting, not these Instagram accounts, because this is how they make their followers and they build up things. And same with the YouTube channels, is they just post whatever news is out there and they act like it's official. So that's extremely annoying because, again, it's not. And I have to answer to these people all the time when I have to say, hey, this isn't official. Let's wait till it's official. Let's wait till it's official. I can't tell you how many people this past week said Paulo Costa, he's got to be cut. He's got to go to Bellator. When it's not even his fault. The UFC moved his fight, not him. So there we go. That's number 9 on the list. Let's get to number 8. This is another one that I've heard every now and then. This is the photo of Abus Magomedov, although his head's cut off. But we don't even have to use him. We can use so many different fighters. James, I get this all the time in my chat. James, what do you think? Is this guy a future champion? A guy who's got like one UFC fight. That's what people are saying about Abus Magomedov before he fought Sean Strickland. You can find it in the comments. This guy had one fight against a fighter who was 1-3 in the UFC, and people are already saying he's a future champion because he got a first-round finish. But it's not just him. I'm not going to single him out. He's the most recent example. But you have all types of fighter. Paddy Pimblett, is he a future UFC champion? Is such and such a future UFC champion. It's usually younger fighters, but every now and then you'll get a guy making his debut and you'll hear people say, hey, is he a future champion? Jailton Almeida, who's fighting Curtis Blaydes, I certainly think he's looking great and he's certainly on the road to becoming a champion. But after his UFC debut, there were people saying, is this guy a future champion? No, it's too early. You can't, figure that out just yet. So I think people like to rush things. We're impatient. We're impatient as a society. And we like to jump to conclusions quickly. And one of the things I always see is future champion, future champion. Hey, if you got a young guy who's got a couple really impressive wins in the UFC, a couple ranked wins, like a Shavkat Rakhmonov, for example, future champion, yeah, I'm on board with that. Tom Aspinall, yeah, I'm on board with that at the time of recording this. Aspinall's fighting tomorrow, but you get what I'm saying. Like guys that have actually built up their resume in the UFC, and you can kind of make that assumption. But someone who's got one UFC fight, UFC champion, that's really annoying. I hear that a lot. Future champion, future champion. We need to see some more evidence here as far as I'm concerned. So that's another one. Okay, let's get to number 7, kind of the opposite one. We'll use Jack Della Maddalena as an example. Unfortunately, his head is cut off here as well, but that is Jack Della Maddalena. Man, that fighter, he got exposed. He's overrated. Jack Della Maddalena has, 3 opponent switch-ups, right? Supposed to fight Sean Brady at UFC 290. Supposed to fight Josiah Harrell. Then he ends up fighting Basil Hafez. Didn't look great, I'll be honest. Wasn't his best performance. He still gets the win. He's exposed. He's overrated. You can't judge everything off one fight. I don't know why people, again, this is about how MMA fans and probably sports fans in general are just impatient about everything. One fight, oh, he's exposed. Arman Tsarukyan fights Joaquim Silva, gets rocked in the fight. He's exposed. Leon Edwards dominates Nick Diaz, is pretty much the entire fight, gets rocked in the 5th round. Oh, Leon Edwards is exposed. He's not that good. Fans got to relax. The exposed thing is very much overused. Okay, a guy goes out there and he has 3 or 4 bad performances, like Johnny Walker as an example. I know not Johnny Walker now, but remember when Johnny Walker got knocked out by Corey Anderson and then he got absolutely out-grappled by Nikita Krylov? Yeah, he was overrated back then. I'm in that camp. But Jack Della Maddalena, one bad fight and you're going to say he's overrated and exposed? Come on, man. You need more evidence than that. That's another one on the opposite end of where people say that such and such fighter is quote-unquote exposed. Super annoying. Okay, let's get to number 6. This is one near and dear to my heart because I've covered his career for a long time. Curtis Blaydes. Man, Curtis Blaydes, better hang him up. He's got CTE. Haven't you heard the way he talks? Curtis Blaydes has had a stutter since he was a kid. I have an interview with Curtis Blaydes when he was in RFA, well before any of you watching this knew who he was. He's stuttering in that interview. He's born with the stutter. I actually had to make a separate clip on this, and I keep posting it every time people say, oh, Curtis Blaydes got CTE. You got all these MMA fan doctors who know everything. CTE, oh, that's why he's stuttering, because he got knocked out by Ngannou, he got knocked out by Lewis. Look, Blaydes has been knocked out a little bit. Might have a little bit of CTE, but it has nothing to do with his speech. Absolutely nothing to do at all. The guy's got a stutter. Takes 2 seconds to look that up. Type in Curtis Blaydes stutter. He's talked about it a lot. He's been very vocal about it. People just don't do their research. They're quick to go, oh, CTE. He has it. So Curtis Blaydes stutter comes in at number 6. That's another annoying take I hear all the time. Let's get to number 5. Don't mean to be disrespectful because this guy's an absolute legend. People wanting to see Nick Diaz fight in the UFC again. I'm not on board with that. How can you watch that fight with Robbie Lawler and want to see Nick Diaz compete again? Oh, Nick wasn't motivated. They forced him to fight. When he's got a full camp, he's motivated. He's ready to go. Nick Diaz is almost 40. Okay. And I like Nick Diaz a lot. And you can never take away the work that Nick Diaz has done in his career. Absolutely not. But look, man, 39 years old, 1-2, well, no contest. Lost that fight though. George, 3 straight losses. Last win was in 2011. Why do people want to see him keep fighting? Nick's a legend. Gave us some of the best fights of all time. Entertaining. No one will be like Nick Diaz. Super unique fighter. Loved watching him fight. I don't want to see him fight again. Okay? If Nick wants to, that's fine. I shouldn't be in the UFC. Okay? I don't think he can defeat anyone even outside the top 10 at this point, top 15. That fight with Robbie Lawler was not competitive. Robbie Lawler just retired like a month ago and has hardly fought since the Nick Diaz fight. And Nick basically could not continue in that fight. Why do people want to see him fight? That's another one. Man, I'd love to see Nick Diaz come back and fight, I don't know, someone, Tony Ferguson. I don't. Nick Diaz, let him ride off into the sunset, do his own thing. And I'm not going to disparage anyone for making a living, but Nick Diaz with his brand name, he could go teach seminars. There's lots of things Nick Diaz could do. He doesn't need to fight anymore. I don't know why people want to see Nick Diaz fight again. That's another one. I'm not disrespecting Nick Diaz, the fighter. I'm disrespecting the fans who want to see him compete. He shouldn't compete. And if Nick Diaz wants to fight, he's got to have people around him saying, look, it's not going to end very well, because it didn't end for him well in that Robbie Lawler fight. That's another very annoying take from fans. That's number 5. Let's get to number 4. This is one I talk about a lot. We're not going to harp too much on this one. You know the fan base. Fake discrimination. That's a big one, okay? I'm not going to say racism because they can't be racist, but you hear this from this fan base more than any other. They talk about how, oh, the UFC was not getting Islam or Khabib fights because they were Muslim. Then you're hearing about, oh, you're picking against, we know why American fans are picking against the Muslim fighter. It's because he's Muslim. That's all fake. There's a few fans that are awful, okay? You can find that in any pocket of MMA fans. You really can. There's awful fans everywhere. And I've done videos on this talking about fans that say some horrible stuff to Muslim fighters, to Islam, to all types of people. That stuff's crap, but that's not even close to the majority of people. Arnold Allen, I always bring this up. Arnold Allen, maybe I'll change my opinion. Arnold Allen slammed as racist for saying Islam Makhachev lost controversial fight against Alex Volkanovski. It was a close fight. Don't believe me? Look at the media scorecards for this one. And I know there's going to be fans as well saying that the fans who scored that fight for Volk were racist or discriminatory. It was a close fight. Okay, media scorecards for that one. Let's go have a look here real quick. Okay, majority did pick Makhachev to win. There was a few that thought Volkanovski won. It was still a close fight. But listen, you don't see other fighters who are African-American, for example, use racism as an excuse for why fans don't like them. Aljamain Sterling, of all people, could do this. There's a lot of fans who don't like Aljamain Sterling. I've not once heard him say, fans don't like me because of the color of my skin. John Jones gets a lot of hate. He could say the same thing. There's a lot of fighters that could use that card. Islam doesn't. It's not him, but his fans use it. That's what's annoying. And that's like, you don't hear any other fan base talk about being discriminated when it comes to fighter matchups, when it comes to close fights. People think that everyone's out to get Muslim fighters. That's not the majority. Yes, there are some people that do that, but that's not even close to the majority of people. So that's another annoying narrative I hear all the time. And I get a lot of flack, calling me anti whatever. It's nonsense. Okay. I respect all the fighters. The fans, that's a different story. We'll talk about that later. Actually, we won't. We're going to continue going on. Okay, number 3. We're going to get an image of Francis Ngannou because he's the most recent example here. Fighter pay. Sorry, Ngannou's head's cut off. I got to use that image instead next time. Fighter pay, man. I get so annoyed by this. Everything's down to, oh, well, fighters you signed up for the UFC. You should be getting paid what you want. This is the reason that it annoys me. If fighters got paid better, right? Because there are fighters who have other jobs and they aren't, and you got to pay your manager, you got to pay your coach, you got to pay for healthy food, which isn't cheap. We all know this. There's a lot of expenses as a fighter that the average person doesn't have to deal with. If you go in any other major professional sport, a lot of that's covered. You think NHL players are having to work a second job to go pay for like a healthy meal or something that's provided from the ownership of the team? You just don't have that with fighters here. So all these fighters, Francis dropped the ball, all this stuff. He's only going for money, all this stuff. Look, we can get into the Francis thing in a separate video, but the amount of people who are crapping on Francis Ngannou for leaving the UFC to try and better himself and better the fighters was just astounding. But the people that argue, I work 60 hours a week, why are you complaining? The fighters need to be paid more, because here's the thing. If the fighters were paid better, we would get better fights. Fighters would have ideal training camps. They wouldn't have to deal with all these different things. That's the thing that blows my mind. The people that go off on the fighter pay thing, it's like if the fighters were paid better, we would get better fights. Is that not what we all want to see? Do you want to watch subpar fights or good fights? We still get good fights, but there's some fighters that could use a little extra, cash in their pocket. And I don't think it's something that people should get so defensive about, but the fighter pay thing is so annoying. I post anything about a fighter, even mildly criticizing UFC sponsorship or something along those lines. Oh, this guy's a loot. And they start like posting their record. Oh, it's because you suck. That's jealousy, man. That's all where that comes from. Super annoying. So fighter pay definitely comes in my top 3. Let's get to number 2. This is a super annoying one. Sorry, Jalen Turner, your head's cut off, but I'll use Jalen Turner as an example. Weight bullies. Oh, this guy's cutting too much weight. He's a bully in there. He's cheating. Weight cutting is part of the sport. Everyone has to cut weight, okay? And it can work against you. Look at, here's a quick example. Gilbert Burns used to fight at lightweight. His last fight at lightweight, he got knocked out. Why? Because he cuts too much weight. Alex Pereira cuts a lot of weight, got knocked out in his last fight. Why? Partially because he cuts too much weight. There is a disadvantage to cutting a lot of weight. There are advantages as well. When you get in the cage, you're a little bit bigger. But this idea that fighters are weight bullies is idiotic. One of the most annoying things I have to deal with on a regular basis in my chats. What do you think about Jalen Turner being a weight bully? Jalen Turner is a very big fighter for the weight class. Jalen Turner missed weight in his last fight. Not substantially, missed by a couple pounds, but people are like, oh, he's a bully against Dan Hooker. No, he wasn't. He is a big guy, but he can cut the weight. Now, Jalen Turner continues to miss weight over and over again, and he keeps fighting at 155. Yeah, we can have that conversation, but that doesn't make him a weight bully. That is nonsense. Everyone has to cut weight. It's part of fighting. It's no different than you being mentally ready to go for a fight. It's no different than being fully healthy going into a fight. It's just part of fighting is cutting weight. Some fighters cut more weight than others. If you can make the weight, great for you. But when you're cutting more weight than other fighters, you are depleting yourself and you are more vulnerable to getting knocked out and to all types of things. It's not good for your body to cut that much weight. So yes, that fighter will have a size advantage if they're cutting a lot of weight, but they're also cutting more weight than the other guy and they're not as fresh. It's as simple as that. So weight bullies, get out of here with that nonsense. But let's get to the number one. I know this is what you guys have been waiting for. This one is so annoying, and we are just going to use, actually, by the way, I was going to use this as well for fighter pay. We'll use Francis and the just greed. Someone made a just greed meme of Dana White, but it's the people that always defend the UFC. They're kind of in the same boat there. But let's get to number one. Sorry, as I prematurely did that. And the only emoji you can use is the Simpsons, comic book store guy, photo here for this one. Fighters that are scared. This fighter's scared to fight this other fighter. This fighter pulled out of this fight because he's scared. He's scared. He's scared. He's scared. You know how hard it is to step in the cage and fight for a living? Imagine going to your job. Imagine having a bunch of people crowding around in a stadium and watching you do your job, and you make a mistake at work. Whoops, I spelled something wrong. Whoops, I did something wrong at work. And you got all these people watching you. And then you got to go on your social media account and you check all your message requests, and it's people telling you you suck and all these different things. Look, that's what they signed up for. But like people saying that fighters are scared to fight other fighters is absolute nonsense. Are fighters strategic about how they want to go about their career? Yes, but that doesn't mean they're scared. If you step into the octagon, you're, as far as like, if you look like this, which most fans do, well, I shouldn't say most, but there's a lot of fans that look like this, and you're criticizing fighters for being scared, you're like, you won't even step in to fight. You know what I mean? So you're just a hypocrite. Like you're someone talking about someone being scared when you probably yourself wouldn't fight. So that to me is the most annoying one by far, is the fans that say that fighters are scared to fight other fighters, that if a fighter has an injury, oh, he was scared to fight. I heard Jeff Neal miss his weight against Shavkat because he was afraid to fight him. This is all types of stuff that I keep hearing over and over again. Fighters are not scared to fight other fighters. Do fighters get nervous going into the octagon? Yes. Do fighters, stare down with fighters and maybe don't feel as confident? Yes. But that's different than a fighter withdrawing from a fight and fans saying the fighter was scared. He never wanted to fight him. That's nonsense. I listen. If another fighter says another fighter's scared, that's fine. But fans have no right to say that unless you're in there yourselves fighting. That's how I feel. That is the most annoying thing I hear from fans. A lot of the fans would never take a punch in the face, would never get into a fist fight, and yet they're criticizing fighters for being scared. Absolute nonsense. That is my number one. Let's talk about our honorable mentions here before we get it too a little bit late. This is one that I have to bring up. Fighters doing OnlyFans. A lot of you guys watching this are probably watching adult content. Who cares if fighters are doing OnlyFans content as well? A lot of guys are like, oh, what a this and that about women trying to sell their bodies. Listen, a lot of the guys watch the content, so you're kind of hypocrites in that regard. And two, like I mentioned with the fighter pay, if fighters were paid better and they had money coming in when they're not fighting, what happens if a fighter gets injured and they're off for a couple of years? Like, we've had that. Like Hannah Goldie does OnlyFans, right? She was off. She had some injuries. What's she supposed to do? Go get another job? They don't have things that are covered. Like she could get another job, but if she wants to make money, showing pictures of herself nude, who cares? The fans who obsess about the OnlyFans stuff, super annoying, but doesn't make our top 10 list. Also in the honorable mentions, Aljamain Sterling is an actor. He had one fight where, yeah, he couldn't continue. He was injured. I'm not going to be the guy sitting behind a computer screen to say that, oh, he could have continued. We know he got surgery after. We know he's had some injuries, all types of stuff. As far as Aljamain Sterling being an actor and all that, that fight should have just been changed to a no contest. It would have been better if Sterling had just said, look, I'm not the real champion. We're going to do the rematch. That would have been better with the fans. But people calling him an actor, even still to this point, you got to give him his due. Beat Piotr Jan, beat Dillashaw, although Dillashaw was injured going into that one. Beat Cejudo in his last fight. Close fight, but he still won. People still calling Sterling an actor. That's another annoying take. And the last one I'll go with, and I put Mokaev here, but I really should have put Raul Rosas Jr. in this. Fighters that are, oh, they'll never be a champion because they get a loss. Mokaev actually hasn't even lost, but he had that fight with Malcolm Gordon and a couple other fights where he was in bad positions. Oh, he'll never be a champion. I hear that a lot too. Complete nonsense. You can't judge things off a couple performances. You got to look overall at the body of work of what they're doing. And again, a guy like Mokaev or Raul Rosas Jr., I've heard people, oh, his career's over because he lost to Christian Rodriguez. The guy's in his early 20s and you're talking about his career being over. Get out of here, man. It's a lot of people who, I don't know, hate sells more than positivity, I guess is kind of what it's at. So I know I ruffled some feathers in this video. That's fine. These are things we need to talk about. I want to know from you guys out there, what does your top 10 list look like? What are some things that I missed here? There's so many things we could have used as far as like excuses or narratives or different things, but I narrowed it down to all these ones. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you want me to do more videos like this, more than happy to do it. And same with the tier list. If there's other things you want me to rank or talk about, more than happy to listen to your feedback here. My name is James Lynch. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Threads @Lynch on Sports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.